And Dr. Ariel Cohen has been tracking it. He's senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and Eurasia Center. I'm wondering, Ariel, how much you see a resolution in the near term and easing in some of the suffering, or are we just getting benumbed to the headlines that really have been dominating what we've been watching over the past couple of months?
I'm not being numbed. I'm horrified. The mayor of Mariupol, the city uh, in southern Ukraine that the Russians are fighting to take now for 2 months, the mayor said 20,000 people were killed. These are civilians, women, children, and the elderly. It is horrifying. And now we see the expansion of the hostilities to include the neighboring Moldova in a separatist part of Moldova called Transnistria. For those who don't know it, please open Google and look up Transnistria. There were several explosions yesterday and today. The Kremlin said that they are quote unquote concerned, and there are rumors swirling that Russia may open another front against Ukraine because they're supporting these separatists, and they may fly their own troops to Transnistria and attack Ukraine from the west, going to the major port city of Odessa on the Black Sea.
Ariel, you went exactly where I wanted you to go, and that is to Moldova. We hear a lot about Poland, Belarus. Can you speak a little bit about the history of the Moldova when it comes to this region and the significance of it when it comes to the war in Ukraine?
Yeah, but before that, I would like to say that from my talks in Moscow before COVID, from reading some of the memoirs and books by Putin advisors, when they are in crisis, their strategy, the Russian strategy, is to expand the perimeter of the crisis, not to shrink it, not to negotiate, but they are convinced in their own superiority. I would add, they're convinced erroneously in their own superiority over the West. They think we're soft, they think we're effete, they think we're scared, which I didn't see much evidence of that yet. And they think that by expanding and escalating, they're going to win this war. And have no doubt, I'm in Sweden right now on a naval base. This is not a war in Ukraine alone. We're mentioning Moldova, but the Russians may go to the Baltic states. They may go to Finland and Sweden. I think it'll be suicidal because Finland and Sweden are joining NATO. But they are expanding so far the perimeter of this all-Europe war. Now, Moldova was occupied first by the Russian Empire, then by the Soviet Union. Part of it was in Romania, and Stalin took it in 1939 when he made a pact with Hitler. Moldova is independent. It's pro-Western, pro-EU, pro-US, pro-NATO.
Yeah.
And it's led by a woman who went to Kennedy School, Maya Sandu. And the Russians don't like it. They have the separatists in Transnistria. They probably would like to take Moldova as well.
When you say they, are you talking about Vladimir Putin, or are you talking about Russians at large in the entire military complex?
You know, this is a 64 trillion ruble question.
How much is that worth at this point?
Yeah, right. Not much. So it is Putin who is expressing the collective unconsciousness of the majority of Russians. Not of all the Russians, far from. And just as we saw more than 100 years ago, when the Bolsheviks took over Russia, all the elite flushed out of there. They went to Paris, they went to Germany, to Berlin, to Prague. A lot of people are leaving Russia today. It's a huge brain drain. A lot of IT professionals, a lot of engineers. If you are thinking about your future in Russia and you speak English and you are sort of cosmopolitan, you get the heck out of there. However, a lot of Russian people, less educated, those who don't necessarily live in big cities or don't work for the government, they are supportive of Putin. They're brainwashed by the horrific Russian propaganda, who calls Ukraine Nazi, who calls the West, what they call it, gay Europa, because, Europe has more LGBT rights than Russia. which is not complicated, right? And they are casting this conflict in existential and ideological terms, not unlike what the communists did 30 plus years ago.
We just have about a minute left. From your perspective, how do you see this ending?
Well, my big fear, and I talked to a lot of colleagues about nuclear escalation, not necessarily an all-out Armageddon-style nuclear war, but Russia throwing a nuke into Ukraine just to bang the table, show they're serious, and then they think we'll go to some serious negotiations, will recognize their sphere of influence, not just in the former Soviet Union, but in all of Eastern Europe, sort of going to status quo ante the end of the Cold War. Eastern Europe is outside of NATO and in the Russian influence, weakening all of Europe, weakening NATO, kicking the US out of Europe. Is that going to happen? I don't think so.
Well, Dr. Ariel Cohen, the Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council of Eurasia Center, we thank you so much for your perspective.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to get more content like this.